Hope you're enjoying your day at ArabNet. This is a panel entitled Digital Media and Ad Budgets. Sorry. Sorry? Photo opportunity. This is a panel that's going to be about facts, figures, numbers. We're going to talk about the money game, the advertising, where the money is coming from, the clients, the agencies, and so on. My name is Zaid Nasser. I'm the founder of MediaMe.com, an online community for advertising and media professionals, and the CEO of Mediascope. I'm going to introduce my panelists here today one by one briefly, then we'll start up the conversation. First here on my left is Mohammed Aitani. He's the Regional Media Director of Initiative Media. Mohammed has long-term experience in media buying with several agencies in the region, a well-known figure in the field. Brendan Ogilvie is the Vice President of Digital Insights at Effective Measure. Effective Measure is a measurement, audience measurement company. It's good to have someone like that with us today. Of course, Brendan has been around and also well-known in the region. Rami Saad is the Director of Emerging Technologies at Vivaki. Vivaki is part of the Publicis group, and he's also had long-term experience in digital media planning and creative even, and the technical. And he was one of the first people to buy online campaigns, I think, in the Middle East. It's good to have you with us.
Probably.
Thank you. Probably. All right. Well, thank you for the neutral comment. And last but not least, of course, on our panel is Toby Ruddock. Toby is now the director of Click Media, a company that specializes in advertising solutions through mobile and other forms. Toby is here today with us because he has 15 years of experience in the advertising media buying side in Australia, the UK, Europe, and the Middle East with various agencies. So you can weigh in on the conversation. And you can say the things that the people who are still in the agencies might not like to say. Maybe they'll say it. We'll see what happens today. All right. So we can kick off now. All right. Now, there are 2 or 3 major things we're going to discuss. The main takeaway we want today is for you to understand as startups or people who are launching small or medium-sized internet businesses. A lot of you here have an advertising model in place. You want to sell advertising. You want to launch your startup, your tech startup, and you have a banner space or you have a mobile site. And what you're thinking is, I want to sell advertising. And you have a lot of questions. Some of the major questions can be answered by these gentlemen here. And they will kick off first with telling us about mainly the digital media spend in the Middle East, what are the obstacles to it. But first, let me just give you some numbers. Nobody's really sure how much online advertising was spent in the Middle East in 2010, but there are different estimates. Some people think it's 100 million US dollars. Some people think it's 130 million US dollars. I know that Google went on record a few months ago and said it's about 130 million, including their share. So let's assume 130 million. If that is the case, and we'd like to work out what is the percentage, because PARC, Pan-Arab Research Center, and Ipsos have kind of agreed that the total volume of advertising in the Middle East was about $14 billion, 14 billion. So 1% of 14 billion is about 140 million. So we're not even at 1%. If PARC and Ipsos numbers are accurate, we're not even at 1%, and this is mind-boggling. Why are we not at 1%? Everybody here in this room wants to know why we are still at such a low spend. And I'll kick off with Mohammed. Tell us, Mohammed, about some of the obstacles you have faced with clients or within the agency in growing digital budgets, because you have a lot of experience with that. And then we'll go on one by one with the obstacles conversation.
Well, number one is understanding of the digital media. There are a lot of clients and advertisers who are too much skewed into TV and outdoor, and they think that digital is a rocket science to them. Now, I have news. It's not a rocket science. It's anyone can understand digital media, but before you understand what is digital media, you have to understand the effectiveness of it and how it can be measured. A lot of them they shy away from online media just because they don't understand how to truly measure it. Now, agencies, they play a big role in that. Also, publishers and suppliers, as they grow, they also play a big role of that. What agencies can do, and they are doing it at the moment, is to have workshops, multiple workshops with their clients to really sit with them and and take them through the whole digital media arena and maybe work on plans and strategies together for them to really understand how it works. Number two is the lack of tools. We don't have much tools in our market. Everything here is rolled out from worldwide, so we are at the end of the roadmap when it comes to tool implementation in the region.
Why is that, Mohammed? Why are we a back, like a back market?
Because it's all, unfortunately, I have to say it's all about the money. When everyone wants to come into the Middle East, they have to see the potential of the Middle East in terms of ROI to them. But they don't understand that users, especially in markets such as UAE, KSA, and Egypt, they are already online. People are creating their own experience online, and they're not counting on international companies to come on board. You see it a lot in Saudi when you see a lot of forums, a lot of blogs, people creating their own tools just to make sure that they are on the right track. When it comes to international players, unfortunately, it's a case of money and ROI.
So there are obstacles internal to the agency. And there are obstacles with the client understanding. You said it's rocket science.
It's not rocket science.
It's not
no,
rocket,
I said it's not rocket science.
It's not rocket science? Okay, all right, sorry. And you said something about TV still ruling supreme in the mentality of the client.
Exactly.
All right. And of course, you alluded to the fact that we don't have enough data, enough information maybe. We're getting there. We're beginning to get that data. Okay, so you know what I'm going to do, Brenda? I'm going to go to the rest of the agency crew and come back to you about the data and information part. And I think Rami has something interesting to tell us about the obstacles, the main obstacles faced in the client and agency environment, why the money is not coming in.
I hate to start by disagreeing, but I actually disagree on the primary reason for why budgets aren't actually being shifted into digital. I don't believe that clients are actually the primary reason. I believe it's the fault of the agencies. And being an agency person, I can tell you this much. I'm going to ask a quick question just around the room here. Who went to university here? Raise your hand if you went to school at some point. If I bring you a transcript today that has Math 101 and it has a white dot next to it, and it has English 101 and it has a green dot next to it, and I just continue on with all your subjects and different color codes next to your subjects, would you know what you did? Did you pass? Did you fail? Is that a B? Is that a B? Is that an A+? You don't know. This is what's happening today to our clients, I believe. We're coming up to them with measurement systems that they do not understand, that they didn't experience before. It is our responsibility to actually get in there with measurements that make sense with their usual TV type budgets. So if you're approaching an FMCG, for example, and they pop the question of, right, I could spend that $100,000 on a TV plan that generates about 70% reach, 6 OTS, and somewhere upwards of 2,400 GRPs. What can you battle that out with if you're a digital person? You don't feel there's strong enough information in the digital field similar to TV? I wouldn't say information. I think the amount of data available out there in terms of information for us can flood us out in a way where we won't have enough time to actually process it. So what we need there is focus and talking to them with the same language. So that transcript example I just gave, we need to go up to them and say digital will achieve B for you, and not give them color codes that they will not be able to understand. And that's where I believe there's a big opportunity for us to create, for example, on online video, some form of a measurement panel that actually brings the GRPs and the reach and all those kind of OTS figures and terms that they're actually comfortable and used to, and link them back together. And I see that as a floodgate in front of a big load of cash for especially FMCG clients. You have voiced this opinion within your agency group. You voiced this opinion. You've told them that we need to do more. Sure. So here's what we're doing about this. As Viveki's group of agencies, which technically represents Starco MediaVest, Zenith, and so on. So what we're doing is, yesterday the talk was all about bringing the offline people up to date with digital, because what we did is, in the rush of things back in 2003 and 2004, we started hiring all those digital experts, which was amazing. It worked really, really well for us. But then fast forward about 7, 8 years later, and then we're actually now stuck with a problem where our offline people understand the digital media scene, but our digital people don't know what's an OTS and what the GRP is. Right. So now our education process is going literally backwards. We've turned the tables around and we're launching kind of media 101s to all our digital guys, and we're kind of creating some sort of interdepartment kind of swaps to get those digital gurus, if you want, to get involved with offline. Muhammad wants to jump in with a comment.
And then I'd like to as well.
I want to add to what Rami have already said now. Yes, a lot of people from offline are trying to get into online because now they understand the importance of online. But 5 years back, it was definitely not like that. Clients were not ready to understand what's digital. Why would I spend 2-3 days to understand what's digital if it's only less than 1% of my media spend? This was the answer that we received from certain advertisers. But now you see clients, they want to understand it, they are ready to understand it, and they are ready to spend 2-3 or a week with you as an agency to understand it the proper way. Same with when it comes to the offline people within the agency. Now that they understand digital, you can see a lot of talents within the offline people which are trying now to move into digital. So it's a very interesting era that we're in, and we're counting on agencies,
So
clients.
Mohammed is saying that the transformation has begun, as you are.
Yep.
Mohammed is a bit more optimistic, it seems, about the transformation. And you think that there's still a lot of work to be done. I see. And, you know, Brendan, maybe we should bring in Toby on this. Just one second before we bring you in. But it's very important here to understand that within the advertising agencies, there's a story now. How can we increase digital media spend? And this will affect all of you because you have hundreds of startups, and all of these startups sometimes have an advertising model. If the ad agencies don't put enough money online, how will your business model succeed? You see, Toby brings a different kind of angle, an international kind of angle to proceedings, because he can tell us a bit about how it worked best in Europe. In the UK now, the percentage of online is about 25%, you told me a minute ago. So, I mean, how did they get to 25%? And what did you see working in the Middle East? What was the problem in the Middle East? And how can we learn from the UK or Europe?
I mean, I think the guys have highlighted the key problems, and these are endemic for Asia Pacific, for Europe, for the advanced markets such as the UK. Brilliant point. Talk to clients in language they understand. I remember getting an FMCG client and simply just discussing how launching a 60-second spot, why aren't you also doing it on the main portals? We'll do video takeovers, piece of cake, your cost estimated, per viewer, let's say, or rating point, etc., is about 1/10. Yeah, and you've also got lean forward. People aren't making a cup of tea at the same time. You're guaranteed they're engaged. I can tell you how long they were watching it for. You can get feedback. You can attach a competition to it. You can get a database from that. It's fantastic. Obviously, they did that. First time they'd ever done digital. We ended up doing the creative for them at the same time. And that's the way you get an FMCG brand. They made bread, not the sexiest brand to bring into a digital space. So certainly talk in terms that clients are familiar with. Don't go off talking about our digital technical stuff because it's not rocket science. It's advertising. So talk to them in their own language. Structurally, the way that digital agencies built themselves as siloed kind of units of experts, and then expected the world to learn everything about them but didn't give much back, was another massive mistake. I've worked for publicists and for WPP agencies in three continents, and they all suffered from that same legacy. And one of the easiest things to do is actually to take the digital team and take them out and explain to them how a press buy works, show them the tools, explain to them how a TV buy works and what your launch rating should be, your GRPs per week, etc., etc. It's not that difficult, but that way they can understand the whole picture. And the third point I'll bring up, I think, is about this region specifically. The agencies here have tended to be MBUs. They're buying units, they're traders. The clients expect that. I can't tell you the number of times the clients have come to me and they're like, cheaper. My answer to them is better.
It's about cost.
Not cheaper, it's about better. It's about more effective. It's about measuring that. It's about an ideas-led solution. So the agencies here have been MBUs traditionally. They still are to a certain degree, although they're shifting rapidly because they understand the demands that are being placed on them internationally and regionally here. But I think what's missing is the communications strategists, those communications planners that receive a brief from a client and then develop a platform. Yeah, a platform that revolves around the brand having a role in the consumer's life and understanding the cultural dynamic and the brand dynamic, a role in culture for the brand, and then developing a platform from which the media plans can come. The media plan should be the outcome. It shouldn't be the thing that's turned around in one day. And I'm sure there's a lot of clients in this room who are probably very guilty of saying to their agencies, give me a plan, I want it tomorrow. You know what you get if you ask me for a plan tomorrow? You get a one-day plan.
Clients tend to do that. Clients want their plan tomorrow, and then they want you to go and talk
but the
to
agencies,
all these publishers.
The agencies say yes.
They should say no.
It's insanity. Yeah. The definition of insanity is when you do the same thing, it doesn't work, and you keep doing it.
That's correct.
So you need to develop a communications platform. So it's the need for those communications strategists, those experts, who can then work with the different media buying units, the print, the TV, the digital, to come up with a holistic plan. And digital will always be at the center of that because it's the
You think
place
so?
where you can put
Why-
content.
Why is digital central? I mean, TV, outdoor, press. Why digital?
TV and outdoor, it's a very short-term exposure.
Okay.
You know, it's a short-term exposure. Digital is where you can engage with the brand. Digital is where you can learn more insights about your consumer, your audience, what they like, what they don't like. That can feed back into the loop that feeds into your creative briefs for your creative agencies. And it's the place where people can spend time with your brand. You can't spend 7 minutes with a brand in a print ad. You can't do it.
So what Toby, what you're saying is that there's a problem in the structure of the agencies, the way they create their teams, the lack of digital strategists and proper communication, and the lack of a platform. You're also agreeing with Rami about some of the points that he made, and of course some of the points that Muhammad made also. So we've kind of diagnosed the problem within the advertising agencies and sometimes in the client psyche and mindset. And one of the problems that everybody mentioned was metrics. You're not able to measure online like you can measure, we think at least we can't. You can't measure online the way you measure print or the way you measure TV. So how can you convince a client to give you the online dollars instead of just going back to TV? And I'm going to give the opportunity now to Brendan to talk a bit about that and changing that mindset. Then we're going to talk about TV versus online afterwards.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, we launched about 2 years ago in the Middle East, Effective Measure. We actually started in the Middle East, but now we're right across, we focus on emerging markets. We're right across Asia, Southeast Asia, now in Africa as well. So our focus is emerging markets, plus our home market is Australia, which is a very different market from emerging markets. Now, I'll just make one note. I mean, the people that I train in agencies to use the planning tool, which is what we do, it's the offline planners that get it instantly because they're used to this type of planning process, which sometimes we struggle actually with digital experts. It's bizarre, but it's true because offline are used to this kind of process. And I think from a numbers point of view, the numbers are there. We did 45 million, we measured 45 million people in the Middle East last month. This month it'll be close to 50 million. So it is...
What are you seeing with these 50 million people?
Well, I mean,
these are 50 million people in the MENA region
yeah.
who are using the internet you are measuring. Tell us a bit about that. And what metrics are coming out? What are the metrics that you can come out to Muhammad and to Toby and to Rami with, the metrics that they need?
Well, the metrics that we offer is we obviously collect demographics. So, I mean, the planner's job is to understand for their client where their target audience is. So we connect the demographic information through the online surveys that we run across the sites. So about 400 sites that we measure. Most of those sites run surveys. We fuse that information together to the statistics, to the actual metrics. Metrics such as, obviously, the unique count, number of people, page impressions, but also a level of engagement. So how much time is spent on that site in a session? How many pages are done in that session? These are kind of metrics that are used to help understand, okay, well, I'm going to have better value for money on this particular site because I'm going to reach more people on that particular site than I would on another
Brendan,
site. So
how do these metrics compare to TV metrics or to outdoor metrics or to press metrics? I mean, how can they put them in front of one another and say, no, the GRPs and the TRPs in the press?
Well, this is where we're moving. This is where the whole digital measurement side of things is moving more towards, ironically, back to the television metric style. I mean, I attended a conference, international conference last year. This is the US, Europe, all the big players were there, but everyone was talking about, well, we need to actually go back and satisfy the needs of television because that's the model, it's a 50-year-old model. Perhaps we should rethink what we're doing. And so we're evolving the way that we, in our tool, you can create a plan. Let's say I want to reach 35 to 45-year-old males in scope to buy a BMW in Saudi, for example. You know, of that age income, of a certain occupation. You run that report, and it's going to give you reach, and it's going to give you relevancy, which is ultimately GRPs, and we'll build in frequency and so on, which is going to give you the same information that you would get from a TV plan.
Okay, so this is what the planners and the buyers want, Brendan. They want a computer where all the information is in and they put in a request. They say, I want males in Saudi Arabia who are ages so to so, and bang, I get an answer.
The challenge for digital is obviously there's hundreds and hundreds of sites. There's not hundreds of television options. So there's more fragmentation.
Okay.
So it takes time for us to have the universe by country to enable the planners to say, okay, if I select 6 sites, I know I'm going to get 25% reach of that audience in that market.
Which brings
that's the process
sorry,
we're going through.
I don't want to cut in on you. Go
that's
on.
Fine. No,
okay.
That's fine.
So that brings us to the next part of the conversation. How many people here are trying to sell online advertising? How many people in this room? That's a significant number. Oh my goodness. Lots of people on this side. So these are the sellers, those are the techies. Anyway, thank you for staying with us. So basically what you're saying is that these people are trying to sell online advertising, and the best way to do so is to establish these metrics, and then the agencies will apply the metrics, and then, all right, well...
Sorry, the agencies will also be showing this to their clients, because the agency's job is also to evangelize their business, to shift spend away from traditional to online. The tool that we have, and the tools like this, is a great way, or a vehicle, or a tool to do that. It's a sales tool as well for the industry, because it gives credence and validity to the size of the audience online, which is massive.
Massive.
And the quality and the profile of the audience as well.
Which brings us to our next point also. Now, the problem is that a lot of the startups are small companies with small traffic. They're like a new business that have 500,000 or 1 million or 2 million page views. And most of these agencies, they get offers from the big guns of the industry, the internationals and the locals, who have tens of millions and hundreds of millions of impressions. So one of the biggest challenges is these entrepreneurs. How will they get advertising support from the ad agencies and the clients if they are so fragmented? If there are hundreds of entrepreneurs with hundreds of websites, what is the answer so that they can get ad revenue? And of course, one of the answers was the guy speaking before us. But I want you to expound a bit more on that and tell us a bit about how you see the market moving. I'll let Mohammed kick off with that one. And Mohammed, be frank about it. And you can be controversial.
No, I will definitely be frank. But to be frank, to the point when Rami and Brandon have mentioned, I disagree with them. Also, I hate to disagree, Rami, but we really don't need to marry online and TV. We don't need to go and say to relate online and TV. Who told you that TV is working properly? Yes, we have the stats, but why should we relate them back together? I think when TV is one to many, while online can be one to many or one to one. So I think TV can learn from online and not
copy. It should not copy TV. Online
exactly.
should not copy TV.
I think it's all about integration. How do you integrate the 360 mix? Which brings me back to Toby when he mentioned that all the communication plans, they need to sit together. Yes, this is the ideal solution. Offline will learn from online when they sit together and they work properly on a brief and try to integrate all of the digital touch points, not all of the touch points, including digital, into one strategy that leads to a plan.
Can I cut in, Mohammed? Do you have a place at the table in your agency? I mean, you're the digital head. When they're planning a big campaign for one of your major clients, they call you up, they say, Mohammed, come, you have a place at the table, decide what we're going to do with digital? Or is the TV guys and the outdoor guys who are running the show? Or how does it work?
Actually, when we attend briefs, we attend it all together. Digital must be in every briefing session for any of our clients. The first thing that we did at Initiative is that we did a workshop, a couple of days workshop, for the whole region, how to sell online to offline people. So we have the education running through the whole company. When we attend a brief, we attend it all together, including the digital people, and we have one answer to every brief. It's all about integration nowadays. It's not about combining only TV with digital, with radio. It's going into one solution to all.
So, sorry, we didn't end up answering the question because you took us on another tangent. There's a bit of disagreement here. But
yeah,
I want to ask you one quick question. What is the percentage, what is the highest percentage that online has taken from a campaign in your experience? I mean, you have a client like 2454, for example, or tell us something like, what's a big achievement for a client?
Sometimes it's 0%, sometimes it's 100%.
Sometimes 100%?
Yes.
A client can do digital only?
Yes. We have clients, especially when it comes to e-commerce, when it's all about data, it's all about measurement, and it's all about getting people to the website and registering. So at some stage, it can be 100%. So there's no right or wrong answer. It really depends on the brief.
I'm going to throw this question immediately to Rami also. Rami, in the Publicis group, do you have high percentages for some clients of online? Because we keep on hearing about 1% is online out of the whole thing, but in reality, it's not percent across the board. Some clients are doing 50% online. Right?
This is probably going to be the first thing I say where I actually agree with Mohammed Aitani.
Thank you.
Yes.
It's good that you guys agreed.
Yes, it
and last time.
Yes, it does.
Brendan is going to disagree. Just give him a second.
Yeah,
so
I'm going to
Toby.
disagree right after that. Give me a second. I'll get back to that. So on the percentages, obviously it depends on the type of client. As Mohammed rightly said, there are some of the clients that are pretty much e-commerce heavy. Some of the sports brands today with us are spending about 50% of their budget, and we're talking pretty decent.
50% of their budget is going online. Some of the sports brands.
Yes.
It makes sense. I mean, young people online.
Absolutely. I mean, the type of platform that they're coming up with really demands, as Toby mentioned earlier, the engagement which any other medium cannot really offer that brand. And that's why they actually spend their, majority of their percentage on digital. Now back to the previous point about measurement. One thing I want to clarify here, I don't believe that we need to merge the measurement systems into one. We're not looking at a fusion between both TV and online. What we're looking at is a language that we can create out of digital that we can speak to these offline-minded people with and be able to get their buy-in so that they can spend money with us. There are two types of companies in the world today in terms of measurement. There's one which Hamid mentioned earlier, the e-commerce guys, the guys that know from one click, from one visit on your site, how much money did I spend on media, and in return, how many tickets did people buy on Emirates.com for an example of our clients. The second type of company is a company that is a shampoo brand. So take Head & Shoulders, for example. They don't know after you clicked on that use Head & Shoulders new menthol type, bottle banner. They don't know what they got out of that specific banner.
It's a return on investment issue, ROI. How do you measure that?
And the first one is obviously easily tackled by using some of the advanced measurement systems, by integrating your site analytics with your media analytics, and that's one part of the game. But then the second type of company, which is the more interesting one, how do you go to Procter & Gamble and tell them spend more money on digital? The answer to that is return on investment for campaigns. Today, Procter & Gamble gets a brand tracker report every single month on Head & Shoulders that tells them, split by specific media, how much lift in points did their brand awareness get, did their brand recall get, did intent on actually buying the product get. And out of that, they draw conclusions on marketing budgets, on putting campaigns on and off air, on seasonality, on which months they should be live and which months they shouldn't. And that's exactly what we're trying to replicate for digital. So today, there is a tool that actually allows you to, Dynamic Logic allows you to basically measure the return on investment in branding points.
So the numbers game is already in place, and the measurement is beginning to happen. Okay, I want to move away from measurement a little bit, and but just for everybody's information, do you know that Park estimates that over 60% of the spend, of the advertising spend in 2010 was on TV across the Middle East? Over 60%. Now, we can understand that because satellite TV is beamed into every home, everybody's watching. The fragmentation is much less. There are not thousands of TV channels that we're watching. There are thousands of channels, but we're not watching them all. Whereas with websites, the problem is that there are thousands of websites. So I'm just gonna give Toby a chance.
All right.
Toby, what's your take on this issue regarding all these small publishers or all these people who are fragmented, and how can they make money online, and maybe the ad network approach? Just something that I want you to come in and give us some mobile experience from your new role at Click Media with mobile.
Yeah, I mean, number one, it's difficult when you're a small publisher, you're a startup, you've got limited money in your hands, you've got limited access to the agencies with the budgets, you have a limited voice there because they only have a certain amount of time to develop plans because of the issues we talked about before. So it's kind of hard to get in your voice in that room. There's a couple of options. Either you need to kind of identify the key clients and the ones you can actually make a difference for. You need to be able to prove yourself, and you're going to end up most likely, and this is controversial, and I don't know who's going to agree with me and who not, but you're probably going to end up having to sell your inventory at a far lower CPM than you think to some kind of network in order to get your foot in the door.
So you have to work with a network, maybe. You have to work with a sales representative or an ad network. But that means that you might lose some of your inventory value.
Your $50 CPM, which was probably ridiculous in the first place, needs to come down significantly. You'll need to sell it to a network, get the traffic up, keep building on your audience, focus on your audience, be realistic about the income you're going to get in the first 2-3 years until you build a certain level of scale. Unless you can afford your own sales force who are dedicated, professional and experienced and can get in to clients and agencies, you're going to struggle to monetize in that way. So it should be about growing your audience and the quality of your content, the understanding your audience and making sure you're being measured and you have that information so that you're part of the same measurement matrix as everybody else. Apples for apples means a lot. And if I know I've got a premium, it's a small site, 3 million impressions a month, whatever. But I know that they're 45 to 54-year-old high-level executive males who want sports cars. Then I'll put Aston Martin there. Yes. And I'll test it out.
This is good advice. This is good advice. So what you're saying is that every one of these startup entrepreneurs should define their audience, obviously. Then basically try to stick to the metrics of the industry and come to these ad networks and sales companies and say, you know, here are our numbers that are compliant with the numbers that you want to put out.
And pick
here
your representative.
Here's our audience.
Research on your representative. You know, some people have got 300 sites, 1,000 sites.
What's
Maybe some of our other ones have only got 10 in their specific verticals.
What's it looking like in mobile, Toby? What's it looking like in mobile? I mean, do we have good mobile traffic in the Middle East? Are mobile entrepreneurs? Some of these people are going straight to mobile.
I mean, as a startup, say a website in this region, say with a year, you've been around for a year or 6 months, you know, you need a mobile site. I think the guys from Google, you know, will start talking about that. Mobile, it's a leapfrog technology. You know, you need to be on the mobile internet, number one.
You need to be on mobile now.
Yeah, absolutely. You're crazy if you don't. It's like saying, I'm a TV broadcaster in 1970 and I'm just going to go black and white. No, you want to make colour. Yeah, and then you can have black and white as well, but you can have colour. Don't think about the traditional internet as your end game, because it won't be. By the time you're up and you're established, it would have moved on. You know, 3 years ago, if I sat here talking about, you know, the uptake of the iPhone, you'd kind of be thinking 2,000, 1,500% or whatever. Oh, come on, mate, it's not going to happen. Of course it happens.
So if you have inventory, you have to think that you have internet inventory and mobile inventory. You're going to put together all your traffic through internet and mobile and sell it all together. And there are ad networks that can handle that. And there are metrics in the mobile world. We're going to now go back to Brendan. So if you want to make a comment on what they said, but give us some information about the mobile and the audience measurement of mobile, if you're doing some of that.
Yeah, so in the last 2 years, we do measure mobile, but we don't measure a lot of mobile-specific sites, although we can, but that's something we're growing. But we also measure mobile to standard websites. So we've seen quite substantial growth. I mean, in Saudi alone, there are some sites that are getting 25% plus of their traffic, and this is a standard portal
over
designed for a PC.
Now, this is a soundbite for Twitter. Over a quarter of the traffic on some websites is coming from mobile. And
there's one site that stands out, and it's Quora, which is obviously one of the largest
Quora is
local portals. I mean, there are most days that it's getting more than 10% of their traffic is via mobile, which is substantial. Right? You know, that site is not designed for a mobile device, and once they do that, that's going to bring in a lot more potential traffic as well.
All the big publishers in the Middle East, the Yahoos and the Googles and Al Jiran and the others, they're also building for mobile, obviously. Yep. Okay, so I want to ask the last comment, because I think we're running out of time. Because we're a bit late today, we have to maybe cut it short. But the last thing is the content issue. Now, Rami brought up a very important point. He said that sports advertisers are going to spend maybe a bigger chunk of their budget online, because so if you're building a site with sports content, then you're a winner, maybe. So maybe each one of you can, very briefly, in like a couple of lines, tell me what are the hot content that the clients want. When you go to your clients, Muhammad, they say to you, you know what, we want to advertise on the site because of its content, or because it has video, or because it has social media, or whatever.
Okay, content difference across market. Who from you guys are from Saudi Arabia?
You're from Saudi Arabia. A lot of representatives from the Saudi market. Very good. And digital sellers too.
As you can see, in Saudi Arabia, they didn't want wait for social media to come in for them to speak freely on the internet. Saudi Arabia, you have a lot of forums. So most of the content when it comes to Saudi Arabia is user-generated content. And I see my clients, they want to go after user-generated content. They want to be where the users are. Users in Saudi Arabia are mostly contributors. They are active users who comment, who blog, who can have a forum working from home. I've seen a lot of companies or people in Saudi Arabia who work from home. They do it just because of the love of it. So this is what we want. We want content that is from within. We don't want to Arabize any content. We want content that is
locally generated
authentic content, and speak the language. Yes. So I hate to show it, but the Google presentation it mainly focuses on Middle East. I don't want to focus on the Middle East. I want to focus on every country in specific, because although we are all Arabs and we are all from the Middle East, everyone speaks his own language, everyone uses internet differently, and everyone has his own type of content. Now, this is the content that the client wants, content that is locally being built.
Yes. So that's what you're saying. You're saying that social content is very important. All right. And Brendan, what kind of content are you guys seeing that is getting a lot of hits and a lot of traffic?
Well, it's exactly the same as what Google showed earlier, in terms of where MENA is quite different from the rest of the world, or Europe, or I think it was Poland and so on. I mean, it's news, sport.
News, sports?
Absolutely, sports and what else?
Okay. All right. And what
forums, definitely.
Forums in the Gulf mainly, but also in Egypt. Forums are really big in Egypt.
Yeah. Correct.
All right.
So social stuff.
But I have a question. How do you know if it's news or sports? You have sports portals that you see as content, but you have portals like Maktub or any other forum that discusses sports, games, women-related subjects, etc. So I'm not 100%. I don't 100% agree on the figures. I think it's up to the users. Where do they consume your content? I can go to Yahoo. But what is Yahoo? It's part of everything. It's sports,
and there's
it's
also
women.
video. There's also video
There's
within
also-
the news and video within the sports. And
So it's very fragmented. I see it as an experience, more like people see this more than this.
okay.
I
Well,
disagree with that.
you agree with that point, right?
No, absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Oh, okay, Rami, what do you think?
I totally disagree with the itinerary. No, I'm kidding. Actually, I'm 100%, with
We're
how
going to have
everybody
to cut
said.
down our
I just-
disagreements a bit so we can take 3 questions from the audience in the next
So pretty quickly, really, I mean, definitely Arabic content. We've got something worth mentioning. For example, we talked a bit about how many opportunities startups can get out of partnering with the right ad network, picking the right ad representation. A lot of these guys have a clusterfudge of the amount of representations that they're putting in place. But the one very interesting and important thing is the niche that you build into that. So if you build the right niche, I'll tell you, some of our luxury brands, for example, now have millions of dollars to spend, and I'm not exaggerating. There are millions of dollars out there that they're willing to spend them on digital, but they can't find the right premium content that's professionally written, that is not a forum, that is not someone's opinion, that is actually addressing topics that these brands would want to be associated with.
So there are millions. There are millions we're not
they need
getting
safe harbors.
because it's not premium content.
Yes,
they're
but
worried
again, I
about
have
it.
I
Make
agree
it
with
very,
Rami
very
on
brief.
this. I
Make it
agree
very
with
brief.
Rami. Just to shed light, you've heard of 244. Now, 244 is all about Arabic content, professional Arabic content. It's a content-driven company that has so many fields within it, and they promote for the Arabic content, and they are extremely active into growing the
And
professional
how does
content.
that relate to what you're saying is that, yes, we're driving, it's beginning to happen, you mean?
Exactly.
It's beginning to happen.
Yes.
Well, I mean, Arabic content on the web, everybody keeps on saying it's also 1%. And I think that maybe it's a very important 1% because I feel that we have some Arabic content on the web. But the important point that Rami made that you have to all listen to is that brands don't want to associate themselves with unprofessionally produced content. If you have a blog and you're saying things that the brand doesn't want to associate itself with, you might not get advertising. If you're talking about politics or sex or subjects that brands don't want to be associated with, you probably won't get any advertising. But if you do it professionally, maybe you will.
It'll work.
So, Toby, your take on this before we wrap up?
Premium niche content, really tough to, if you can tap into something and they'll pay. It's not necessarily about the click-through rate that clients can be obsessed with in those kind of areas. It's about being exposed in those premium environments and the brand association you get. So that's a very good point. And it's incredibly difficult, I launched a car, a Jaguar XKR about, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Found one place, which was actually a digital magazine format. 1,300 leads. That's sold. They only had 1,200 cars. So this was one, it cost a fortune. However, it was still the cheapest leads they ever got for that. And that was supposed to be UK only, but we unfortunately made a mistake and opened it up. And a lot of the leads actually came from the Middle East. But that's an interesting case in point, because there's only one place to put it there, and it worked. Yeah. And the client,
The client was thrilled. And the problem was that you couldn't find the right
was
media.
concerned that they didn't have enough, they would never, they're going to disappoint a lot of customers because they only have 1,200 of these cars. And the other point I think that I'll kind of be boring and agree with is the localization of the content. If I'm in Saudi or I'm in Egypt, even if it's football content, whatever it may be, even if the back-end content on your site, behind the pages, is a bit more generic, the front stuff needs to be localized to get that hook. I care about what happens, if someone in the UAE, I actually care more about Dubai than I would about Abu Dhabi. Or if I lived in Abu Dhabi, I'd care more about the Abu Dhabi than Dubai.
Very, very
so
local.
Localized first.
Very relevant. You want it to be very local, Toby. This is the message you want to get across.
Yeah.
And this is very important because do we have a user-generated culture in the Arab world yet? Enough of it. Do we have enough user-generated content? I mean, do you do reviews? Are you gonna review a restaurant if you go there? Are you gonna sit down and shoot a video of yourself? The amount of people who produce content in the US is stunning. So we need you all to also get your users and get whoever staff is involved to just produce more and more local content. All right, so I'm going to now open up to questions. I think we can do 2 or 3 questions.
Sorry, Zaid, can I just add one more thing before we leave?
Yalla,
I just feel like
another disagreement?
No. It's actually just a statement. I just feel like we've been, almost stepping on the toes of offline far too much in this conversation. So I just want to clarify one thing. In no way are we trying to steal away the the TV budgets into digital. This is not what we're trying to achieve.
You sure you don't want to? It's
That's
like 60% now.
No,
We need some of that money. 60%,
So
55%.
what I believe is actually happening in the region is slowly TV is becoming digital anyway. So we will not need to do much of that really. As soon as the technology catches up and adoption rate is obviously in the region really high for new tech, we will not need to do most of what we're doing today.
Through faster
It's right. It's a screen where you're getting content through a screen. So those lines are blurring anyway. So those old ways of defining things will be irrelevant before we know it. What is a screen? Is it my mobile screen or my device, my mobile device screen, or is it my TV screen or my PC screen? It's a screen where I, as a person, enjoy content, enjoy stuff.
Yes.
That's it. It's really simple. Back to kind of human nature, human basics.
It's the integration of all these screens of your mobile, your computer, and maybe your TV. Even your TV is going digital TV. So interesting. So basically, we're going to give you like a chance to answer some questions, but we want you to get a few takeaways from this. All right. And the key ones are that if you're a publisher, a startup publisher, you have to have the right content that attracts advertisers. You have to use the right metrics that advertisers will be willing to plan and buy for. You have to know that all of these guys are trying to get a bigger budget. So this is the other thing, that the budgets will grow. Digital will grow. It's just not growing fast enough. Okay, who's the question? Okay, 3 minutes actually. Question 1, 3 questions. The gentleman over there who had his hand up for a long time, in the back, yep. Sorry. Yeah. Adi, brief question?
Sure, thanks.
Thank you.
The question is basically, you covered mobile sites and you covered websites. What do you think?
قرب المايك عادي.
You covered mobile sites and you've covered websites. What do you think of mobile applications and advertising on them?
That's a good one. Thank
That's
you for
one.
bringing it up.
And 2, basically, is what do you consider for a startup, an internet startup, a critical mass number, like from a page view perspective or a user perspective, that an advertiser would think that it's worth advertising with this, regardless of the content being user-generated or a niche content?
Interesting. Very good. Who wants to take the app question first? Rami called the second question. He wants the second question.
I could do first.
You want to start? Okay, look, do the second one first, which is the critical mass of traffic needed for it to be worthy of advertising.
My answer to you is 1 unique user that actually matters to my brand. 1. If you have 1, we're no longer buying impressions here. Our way of thinking of digital media is totally different. I'm not interested in a CPM. I'm not interested in actually 1,000 users being on one side. I'm interested in 1 person who is willing to buy that Jaguar Toby was talking about. That's my answer.
Any number of users is good if they are unique users who are relevant within a niche. What about who wants to take the mobile apps one? Toby, you want to jump in? Tell us about the apps.
I mean, mobile application's fantastic. Has to be improve the experience. However, the number one thing is just the mobile internet. Get that kind of sorted first. Get your mobile site sorted first. Work out what the benefit of downloading that app will be, and then make sure that you advertise that app and get that app out there and get people to download it and play with it.
So I understand this more, Toby. There's a difference between a mobile site and a mobile app, obviously.
Yeah.
So your mobile site is just another mirror of your site, but the app is different. So is there a way to monetize it within the app? You can do in-app advertising.
There's many ways to monetize these things. I mean, I think that once again you have to kind of get it out there. It's one of those fatal mistakes. I think I need to have this app. I need to have. It's like, well, wait on. What's your overall offering? Your content offering? What's the benefit for the person at the end? What devices are they actually using to access your type of content, and what benefit does the app and the user experience make, and how are you going to make sure people use that in a growingly crowded kind of marketplace? Okay. Yes, by all means, you should kind of be doing it all, but look at what your return investment is. If you've only got X amount of money, make sure you're kind of taking what you already have and making the most of it, and then trying to build on that, build loyalty, get the app downloads, and then add value to it.
So if you have an app and you don't have 10,000 downloads, there's no point, or don't have 2,000 downloads. If you have like 10 downloads, there's nothing to sell. What do you think, Brendan, do you monitor apps? Do you monitor
Not yet. I mean, we're developing the systems to do that, and that should be available.
So when you do,
but the focus, as Toby says, is we need more websites, mobile sites, because that's where the opportunities lie right now. And
so
we
it's
can
not
do
apps.
that
It's
right
not an
now.
apps market yet, Adi. Not yet, at least. What? Sorry, I'm going to have to. Sorry, I know you disagree, but we can have this conversation later. Who's the second question? The gentleman over here. So mobile apps and mobile sites, it's a bit confusing.
I actually wonder how much of the perceived shortage in online advertising channels is due to digital agencies underestimating or looking down at Arabic blogs even if they were, say, not fully professional? And the second part is, has anybody in the region considered a model of advertising over federated blogs?
Yeah, Aitan, you want to jump in with this one?
Now, as we said before, there are 60, 70 TV stations maybe in the Middle East, maybe much more. But there are millions and millions of websites. If any agency would come to really dig into each and every website, it's a ever-ending process, and I'm sure Rami and Toby, they agree with me on this. But again, yes, forums are extremely important. For local advertisers, it is extremely important as well. I go back to the Saudi example. In Saudi, it's all about forums and websites such as abunawaf.com, which no one maybe heard of it in here, but in Saudi it seems to be extremely powerful, and you have tons and tons of other local forums and websites. I think agencies are starting to look into these, and more or less our agency in Saudi Arabia, they count more on local websites rather than international websites in Saudi Arabia.
His point is that this is a local blogger who's doing something useful to his community and has a decent following but can't get advertising. You're saying the problem is it's difficult to know all of these people in every market. It's difficult because there are hundreds maybe of these in every market. In a market like Egypt, especially with what happened in Q1. By the way, sorry. Yeah, and like the federated media model in the US. You bring together all the blogs and you sell them as a package. Yes. That's what we're saying. Thank you for that comment. It's like it's an ad network. Again, you go, you build volume, you put all these bloggers together and sell them as a package. And the guys here do not oppose that, you know. Rami.
I just want to add quickly a small little point. I don't believe that advertising on an actual forum is the best way to engage with consumers. These people are in there to socialize. This, I believe, and again, maybe this negates some of the panelists that were talking earlier this morning, forums are the biggest form of social media in the Arab world today. Whether we like it or not, forums and blogs are actually the #1 form of social media.
It's Web 1.0, but it's big in the Middle East.
And what I'd like to say is involvement of these brands in these forums, whether it's through in-text advertising that are more topic-oriented, you know, depending on what you're talking about in that specific thread, or inviting bloggers to come and experience a brand before it's actually launched out there to the market, like General Motors does most of the time, to experience a car and go and review it, whether it's positive or negative, it does not matter. What you want is you want this engagement, you want these bloggers to get out there and the influencers to get out there and talk about your product. And that's really what I think is probably the main takeout. That's what we need to put more effort on.
Driven. Yeah, I'm going to have to wrap up. You know, there are social media budgets also. Apart from these guys are also planning for social media. They can do a social activation campaign. Instead of buying advertising and buying space, they might actually hire advocates and product evangelists. So there is other money that can be made, not just purely advertising. So I'm going to have to wrap up now. And the year 2011 is now almost done, Q1. We're not sure what's going to happen to online advertising. There's a lot of Arab unrest. So I just want a yes or a no. Online advertising will increase this year, stay the same, or decrease?
Increase, definitely. Increase.
What do you think, Brendan? Similar?
I think it'll increase.
Sorry?
Absolutely, it'll increase.
It will increase? Yeah. What do you think, Rami? Increase significantly?
Yeah, obviously.
Significantly increase?
Yeah, I would say from our perspective, we've grown by about 30% on digital this year.
30% growth?
In terms of actual spend on digital.
I hope you're right.
We've gone up by 30% in our agency, I mean, in our
the Publicis group.
Clients.
I see. What do you think, Toby?
At least 30%. I mean, it should be growing significantly more than that. There's a massive gap, and also mobile is going to continue to grow massively as well. And even there's still large gaps in search marketing budget. So all three of those things, the traditional display, mobile, and search, should all be growing significantly this year.
Search and mobile will be driving that, you think, in many ways?
I don't know. I think the whole thing will grow. However, that you'll see their share continue to expand significantly based on a low base.
Wonderful. So you heard
it
here
first. I think that's it.
You heard it here
We're
first.
getting the message from Omar.
We're expecting about 160 million in advertising 2011. I hope it's true. I want to thank our panelists. Let's give them a big hand. And thank you, Omar, for giving us the extra 5 minutes. We wanted to give people some extra value. Thank you very much, Muhammad, Brendan, Rami, and Toby. Cheers.